What up, Tube? What are we doing today? Well, part 2 of our maintenance for our road trip. New front rotors and new pads for the Cayman. So I want to upgrade from the drilled rotors. So what we're going with is a set of, they're called Sebro or Sebro, S-E-B-R-O, OEM replacement rotors. These are the only good ones I have found that are non-drilled, so slotted only rotors. They're sealed, they come sealed, so we got to take them out of here. We're going to clean them off with some brake cleaner. They will be packaged with a coating, like an oily coating, so it prevents rust. They're labeled left, that's what you're looking at, and I got a right one in there. And there's the part number if you want to look at it. And it's a 909319C for the other side, for this one. But yeah, these are really well reviewed on Pelican Parts, Rennlist, and all the other Porsche areas for the Cayman and the Boxsters. Nice, strong, high carbon iron rotor, directional vaned with slots only. And Techstar pads, basically OEM pads. These are the same pads that the OEM uses, same pads that are in there because I already checked. Alright, so on the 987s and the 997s, the reservoir for your brake fluid is right here. So we just pop the top off. I just drop it in the front trunk here. Take the cap off. We're going to get a paper towel. Put the paper towel out. We don't want brake fluid everywhere, so we're going to, you can use a screwdriver. I'm using my hand, but this is your mesh pre-filter, little filter guy there. Put it in the cap so you don't get any fluid anywhere. And you can see where the level is. So what we're going to do is, I got an old water bottle. And this is a suction turkey baster thing guy. It's not actually a turkey baster, but it's like that. You squeeze it, dip it in, and it'll extract fluid. And then you just do that. So you just repeat the process until you get the fluid out. And then you can look at it, and the fluid's not in bad shape at all. We'll take a look at it in a sec here. You don't need to take it all out, and this takes a little bit of time. And you're going to be careful because have a towel ready. The brake fluid is bad. It'll ruin paint if it's left on there for a long period of time. Plastic, not so much. If you spill, just wipe really quick and then clean it off with an all-purpose cleaner. No biggie, okay? So, let's look at the fluid. Brake fluid, it comes in different colors. Most of it is a light bronze brown. I'm not sure what fluid was in here as far as brand, but it's not very dark. The darker the brake fluid, the more contaminant or moisture is in the brake fluid. Per the cap, the Porsche uses a .4. .4 fluid does mix with .3 if you're in a pinch, but try to keep .3 and .4 the same. .5 is a silicone-based fluid, and it will not mix with .3 or .4. It'll push it away. Think of oil and water, because .5 is not hydroscopic. So, we got some .4, not the same brand, because it's a different color, but it'll mix properly, and we'll get that in the system once we finish up. So we're going to keep pulling some of this out. Alright, so let me show you about how much brake fluid I took out. It's about a half of this water bottle. It's crunched up, so we'll just call it about half. We'll walk over here. You can see maybe about half level of where it was, and it was to this line right there. Just to give you an idea, what we're going to use. We're going to use impact screwdriver, Phillips head, to take off the setting bolts for the rotor. We're going to use a T55 Torx and the ratchet to take off the mounting bolts for the caliper. It's a radial mount style caliper. And we have some extensions, a couple 10mm sockets, don't lose them. And then 2 flathead screwdrivers so we can separate the pads. And then our trusty ratcheting electric guy. So you want to use one of these guys because these have road grime, rust, we'll call it oxidation, same thing, on them. And these little set screws right here and here are going to be really hard to take off just by trying to, you know, twist it off with a normal screwdriver. So the way you do this, simple. It's a special bit, it's an impact bit, and as you hit this, you turn, and voila. Regular hammer will work. I'm using a 3-pound sludge. It's just what I always use. And that's it, and they're loose. That one's loose, you saw it come out a little bit, and that one's loose. Alright, time to get going on the rest. Alright, so the only things you really need to take off are going to be loosen up the 2 screws we just loosened up. And we're on the ground. Jack stands. You know how we work. Yes, there's a jack stand on that side. Showed you all last time. Car hasn't come down since we worked on the oh my gosh, spark plugs. Anyways, we need to remove all these things. So these guys, we're going to need to pop this, I don't know, lock. I'm going to call it a lock. This lock right here that holds the pad sensor wire right there, so we can disconnect that and move that out of the way. Okay, and then we'll separate the pads. But before we get to, well, we can you can loosen the T55 bolts. Don't take them all the way out. Just break them loose. We could take the 10 mil out here last, and then what we want to do is we need to take this pin out. So to take the pin out, we need to take this guy out, and this is the cotter pin that holds it in place. Okay, so we ended up doing, we're just going to use the flathead, and the flathead, you just get it right inside of that and allows you to push up on this cotter pin. That cotter pin, focus, okay, holds this pin in place. So when we get the cotter pin out, put it aside, don't lose it unless you bought a hardware kit, which we didn't, of course, but usually most of this stuff's reusable a couple times. The hardware kit didn't come in time, so we're going to use a punch to knock that out. So that guy there, tap it in with a hammer. See how much we can move it by hand. Not a lot. So we're going to use a hammer and tap that in. Correction, tap it out. And then you can grab a pair of pliers and get it out the rest of the way. There's a tension spring right there that creates tension against this pin once it's in, that acts as a way to hold the pad in and also anti-vibration. So when you get the pliers, pull this out, then we'll take this guy out of here, just pull it out with a pair of pliers. This is a Alright, so we're going to get a set of needle nose pliers, and we're going to take this guy out, if it wants to come out. Of course it doesn't, it wants to fight. This is your brake sensor. And when this comes out, this clip will come with it. And you'll see here, the clip goes like this, with this side coming down, facing the ground. So just make note of how it sits. And then we'll take the other one out as well, which is sitting on the other pad. So you have 2 pad wear sensors, and you can buy replacement ones. We're going to reuse them. It's a circuit, so you want to make sure that they're in there or else it won't read anything. Or you can leave them off. if you unplug it, you'll get a warning light. If you leave it connected, even though you may not want it, for racing purposes, some people don't want that. So you can leave it on. You can. The new pads have the provision for it. Make note on how the pads are sitting, you know, in regards to the sensor low here, sensor high here. So we've got a flathead screwdriver on each side, and we're slowly going to push these pistons out. And you just push against the rotor. Push against the rotor. What you're doing is pulling the pistons back in to their normal spot. And again, this technique I would only suggest doing if you're replacing the rotor, because there's a high chance you're going to scratch the rotor face with this. So, that being said, we are replacing the rotors and the pads, so that's how we're doing it. And they should release. I'm going to push on it from the back side here. You know what? I think the pad shims are stuck to the backing plate. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually pull the caliper off and remove the pads in. What happens is there's a backing plate that sticks to the back of this. And it's an anti-vibration backing plate shim. I'll show it to you when I put the new one in. This is your pad shim, and these are the old pad shims. And they look like they're in good shape, except for they're stuck or adhered to the original pads. So we are going to have to put the new ones in when we do the new pads. Old rotor is off, new rotor is on. Set screws are back in. There's no studs on here, so most German cars, BMWs, Porsches, they don't use studs, they use lug bolts. So we need to make sure that everything lines up properly, or else your lug bolts won't lock in right. But there's only one way for these two holes to line up. So line them up. Once the set screws are in, you're good. Everything measures out right. Make sure your clearances are fine. Rotate it. We sprayed the entire rotor with brake cleaner, both faces. It didn't say not to, so it doesn't say not to, we do. And when you spray it, it actually takes, there was an R on here for right. Right means passenger side, so it's right and left based on you sitting in the car looking out the windshield. Okay, so this is on. So we're going to now mount the caliper and insert the shims and get the pads back in, and then we'll be done. On the top side, we went ahead and simply undid this lock, pulled out the pad sensor wire that was here, okay, which allowed us to, we didn't have to take this whole thing off. And then back here, there's a bracket that goes here that's attached to the brake line, which allows you to move the caliper and set it in that spot right there. You can hang it with a zip tie if you want. We just shoved it in there real good. It's not going to move for what we're doing today or right now. This rotor is coated. It has this gray coating on it. It's coated on the inner parts of the vanes. It's also coated on the hat area of the rotor. So that way the non-friction area will stay pretty much protected from oxidation, which is a really cool feature. Now in regards to the vanes, this is a directional vane rotor. I'm trying to get a decent photo of it or video of it. You can see the vanes are curved down this way. So when the rotor moves forward, it spits the hot air out. Okay, so the vanes in this design, as well as many other designs like Willwood, for example, are designed to evacuate the hot air as the rotor moves forward, instead of picking up cool air like a lot of people think. Directional vanes, most of the time, are going to evacuate hot air out of the rotor as it moves forward. That's why the vanes are this way in reverse. So when they go forward, instead of scooping up air, it's taking air out. So these slots are actually shaped in the same direction as the vane angle is. The slots are not for cooling. The slots help basically every time a slot passes over the pad, it kind of cleans the face off a little bit. These stock rotors, as you saw, were drilled. The OEM rotors for most Porsches with iron rotors are drilled. And there's nothing wrong with it for street driving and some fun driving, but longevity-wise, drilled rotors really have no cooling properties. If they're a directional vane like this one, the same, I will say everything's same for same iron content, same directional vane. A drilled rotor is actually weaker. The drilled holes is less surface area and creates a weak point for stress. So when the rotor heats up and cools down, over time, you get stress fractures between the holes. That's why I didn't want to go with that on the front. Now when I change the rears, I'm going to match them up so they look the same, but the rears are in really good shape. So it's not going to change my braking power, my brake torque, because the rotor is the same size or anything like that. We're just trying to upgrade the front rotors because we know we're going to do some fun driving on this road trip, and we want to make sure we have a full thick rotor that's going to take pretty much anything I throw at it. And we might do some track events coming up with the Porsche Club of America here towards the end of the year. So we're going to throw the caliper back on, and then I'll show you how the pads go in. All right. See, I got the pad shim in place, and we got the larger piston and the smaller piston. The larger piston goes forward as the rotor rotates that way towards the leading edge. So you're just going to push them in to their spot there, nice and gentle like. And once they're in, I just use the screwdriver to peel a corner up, and then hopefully this cooperates the way it should. Of course it did not, but you get the idea. What we're trying to do is take the adhesive off so that way it sticks nicely. These are usually on, there we go, we got it all out. So now with the adhesive on, or off, sorry, I want to make sure that's in all the way there, we can take the pad and just slide this guy in. So now when the piston compresses, it'll stick it on for you. We're going to do the other side, and we'll come back and show you how the hardware goes back on. All right. So your sensors are just going to slide right back into the slot. They're just going to hold in place there, and then you're going to put your retaining bracket in. You're going to push down, and as you push down, you're going to push that pin in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tap it. So there we go. So I'm just going to tap it, but you want to make sure that as you're pressing this in, because this has got some tension to it, okay, so it's going to fight you just a little bit. Not a problem. Leverage is your friend, okay, but also you want to make sure that the cotter pin hole is facing out this way, so pointing up at you, so you can put your cotter pin back in, because a cotter pin essentially is what holds this pin in place. So you can rotate this and then just continue tapping it in. Use a hammer if you want. Sometimes they slide in nice and easy, but sometimes they fight. So we'll just continue tapping it in with the wrench. I'm not going to go get the other hammer. If you there we go. You get some of that tension out, boom, it just hits in the slot. Get your cotter pin. Yes, your hands will get dirty. You don't like getting your hands dirty? Well, don't work on cars. That's my thing, you know? You're all set, man. Alright, last step, check your brake fluid level. Remember, you spilt a little on the, just spilt a little bit on the plastic, just don't put it on the paint. And fill it up. We're going to use 600 EXP 600 from Willwood. Just have this laying around. It's a .4. Pour some in. Check it. Get it to the level. Cap it off. Pump your brakes. Check it again. 2 or 3 pumps, your brakes should be firm again. We didn't open the caliper, so no air should be present if you're just doing this service. If that's the case, 2 or 3 pumps, nice and firm, go around, spin the rotors after you release the pedal to make sure they spin without any hesitation. Hit the brakes one more time, check your level, top it off if needed, and you're done. Thanks, y'all. Hopefully, hey, we finished the other side. But, yeah. Hope you enjoyed this. You learned something new. Don't be afraid. Not too exotic. Brakes are brakes. We just finished the brakes on our Porsche with the slotted rotors. Hit the subscribe button. Give us a like. Comment. Hit the notification bell. We're going to top off that fluid. Have a great week, and God bless.